Hello YouTube, new free program today, and this one is going to be a gentleman split. A few things before I start. This program was actually requested by someone, meaning that it's not a program review per se, it's a guy on Instagram that sent me a message with prerequisites asking me if I would make him a program, and I said yes. Now, I don't do that, meaning that if you message me for a program, I will not make you one. And the reason why is because A, I don't have the capacity for that. Two, I don't want to make this a business. I will never sell you a program. And three, everything you need to know about how to program for yourself is on this channel or will be in the future. And that's what I want. I want to teach you how to do things yourself because I think it's the healthiest way to approach the discipline. And it's also what's going to make you go the further when it comes to bodybuilding. Learning how to program is an important skill. Is just as important as learning how to squat. The reason why I said yes for this guy is because he gave me certain parameters that made me realize that he could potentially be a good case study, a good guinea pig, if you will. Plus, he wanted it to be in the form of a gentleman split. So it was a chance for me to show you guys how it's done in practice. Because I'm going to make a ton of videos about gentleman splits, but they're all going to be theoretical for the most part, and it's going to end up being like the evolving rep range playlist that I have, where it's purely theoretical to a point, but for the evolving rep range, I can actually review programs that are sent to me, and I explain why evolving rep ranges would be beneficial in there. So that's a good way for me to be practical. In here, because the gentleman split is my own vision of a perfect program, or as close to perfection as possible, I'm never going to get a chance to review one because no one knows how to make them. So I offer this one to you. This is not an invitation to sending me requests for programs because I won't do it. So as far as what the guy asked, he was pretty open. He didn't have any injuries or anything that would stop me from including certain lifts. All of what I've done to create that program is a process that I will eventually explain on video before you start programming for yourself. That's important, but none of that happened here. He just told me that he had certain weak points, mainly the arms, the shoulders, and the mid-back, and that he wanted something that was based on my idea of the gentleman split. So I came up with this. It's in the description. In the description, you will see the program for the guy, and then you will see a template or a skeleton or whatever you want to call it. Technically more of a template because it's too furnished to be a skeleton. So the difference between the two are going to be that you will see that for the guy, I made the modification of the split based on his needs. Okay, and his needs are bigger arms, bigger shoulders, bigger mid-back. Okay, and I also based it on some of the things he told me about himself. He has an overpowering chest. He has bad tricep extension, bad tricep insertions. He has long biceps. All of these made me skew the program ever so slightly. But if you pay attention to the differences between the template and the completely finished program for him, you will be able to tell. Okay. And the way I made it is that if you want to follow the program I'm putting out there for the guy because he's going to follow it, do it. Okay. But keep in mind it's for him. Most likely you will be better suited doing the one that is blank, quote unquote. And once you get to the blank template, the only thing you have to do is fill it out, okay? So what you're going to do when you fill it out is you're just going to replace the movement pattern that I included by the one that you want. And as long as it's a movement pattern that is aligned with what I tell you to do, it'll be fine. You will also notice that I'm not going to include any rep ranges. And the reason why I don't include rep ranges is that this is volume and intensity manipulation. So it's up to you really to decide what you want to do with that. I'm basically just setting the frequency of the template and then it's up to you to play around with it. That being said, because I know some people like to be told what to do, and that's fine if you're not super confident about your ability to program yet, I'm going to put them out loud verbally right now for you guys. So we're going to start with his program so I can explain my logic. So it's a gentleman split, meaning that as I explained in the video that details how to create the skeleton of the program, you are going to stay within a striking range that is going to be between 4 and 5 days, okay? Here, he and you have the choice. You either do 4 days, so 2 upper, 2 lower, or you do 4 days plus an arm day. It's up to you entirely, okay? The arm day is not going to be anything that is going to be so taxating that it's going to damage your ability to progress. So it's entirely up to you whether you want to include it or not. But of course, if you do it, you will get better gains. Why? Because you're going to be working that body part. That being said, it's going to take place on the weekends. So for people who consider the weekend as that sacred place where they don't train, or people who only want to train 4 days a week, I get it, you don't do it, it's fine. I made it so that the arm day, even if it's removed, doesn't really impact your ability to progress on the 4 other days. And that's an important concept of the gentleman's split that is going to be detailed. What I'm doing here is fully practical. You might hear things that you don't fully understand. If you do, please bear with me because the videos about the theoretical aspect of these concepts will be made, so you will fully understand everything. Okay, so for his program, Monday upper. Start with upper. I picked the main lift. The main movement pattern for the day is going to be an overhead press. And the focus for the body part split is going to be shoulders, triceps, biceps, lats, and traps. You will notice on your template that I don't specify the part of the upper back that is going to be focused. I do on his because I have a certain idea of what I want to propose. But it's up to you when you get to the template to decide which ones you want to emphasize. So for him, overhead press. Why? Because he has weak shoulders. So I'm going to have an emphasis of vertical presses in his program. We start with barbell overhead press. So that's going to be the strength work component of the program. It's not going to be supersetted at all. For a barbell overhead press, I highly suggest people do something that is going to be in between high intensity and high volume. So for a barbell overhead press, and for him, I'm actually going to include the reps and everything, you will do 3 to 6 sets of 2 to 5 reps. And the reasoning for that is it's going to give you a wide range of reps and sets you can hit, and it's going to promote high intensity in certain parts of the program and high volume in others. Meaning that if one day you feel like you want to push progression and you feel confident in your ability to do so, you're going to come in and you're going to do 3 sets of maybe 3 to 2 reps, maybe 4 for the first set. And all of that is going to potentially lead to a point where you might get to 6 sets. That being said, for that type of overhead press scheme, there's usually a modification in weight, meaning that you're going to pyramid up and down. It might be a little bit confusing for people at first. So I actually recommend in that case to do 3 to 4 sets and you stay within the 2 to 5 reps. After that, you start with the first giant set because there's going to be plenty of giant sets. I explained it before. Supersetting is not going to take away from your ability to progress. If anything, it's going to make it better. Why? Because you gain time, and the time you gain practicing the movement is much better in terms of investment and in terms of actually being able to put weight on the bar than splitting the sets, because that takes way too much time. So the second row is going to be easy bar curls, supersetted with skull crushers, supersetted with Pendlay rows. You will find that your ability to superset if you go to a commercial gym is limited. If that is so, I apologize, but when I program, I try and not take those type of considerations in mind because it's optimal programming in a sense, meaning that if I were to always have to keep in mind the fact that maybe there's going to be a grandma that is going to steal the dumbbells, I can't get anything done. But because I know not everyone has a home gym, I try to make the supersets as easy to apply as possible in a sense. So for this, for example, it looks like it's 3 exercises, but you only really need a bench and an easy bar curl. Because you can do skull crushers with an easy bar, you can do Pendlay rows with an easy bar. The only thing that might change is the fact that you're going to have to stack weights and maybe have plates around you, but as long as you use them, no one can say anything about it. So you do your curl, you do your skull crusher for the long head, and then you do your Pendlay rows. As far as the rep range, I am going to say easy bar curl, 6 to 10 reps. That's a good rep range. Skull crushers are going to be 8 to 12 reps. And Pendlay rows are going to be 6 to 10 as well. And with these rep ranges, with these evolving rep ranges, you can do 3 to 4 sets. Okay? And that is going to lead you to an ability to progress that is going to be quite interesting. Because you see, if I keep you at 4 sets only and it's fixated, what you're going to encounter is that you might end up repeating the same weight again and again, because you always try to get that 4th set, and you also have in your head the fact that if you go up in weight, now you have to do the 4 sets again with more weight. That's the issue of most 5x5s. But if you have an ability to just go up to 3 sets, it pushes the intensity, you experience higher weights without knowing that you messed up because you couldn't complete the set. Because you could, you did 3 sets, because it's 3 to 4. After that, chin-ups, not weighted for that day. I precise for the vertical pulls if they're weighted or not. If you cannot do them weighted, if you can't do them weighted, raise your hand. I personally can't. It's fine. You just do them unweighted. And in that case, it's my personal opinion that when you cannot do weighted pull-ups, applying rep ranges is not super important. Just do as many as possible. And if you want, something that actually works is you do as many as possible with reps in the tank. That tends to do the trick for bodyweight calisthenics. You can progress doing that. So for the chin-ups, not weighted, which means what I just described. And then cable lateral raises and barbell shrugs supersetted. So for the cable lateral raises, that's something that you actually want to start doing in higher rep ranges. So 10 to 15. Okay. Why 10 to 15? Because if I put you in that rep range, I guarantee your ability to actually crank out the reps. You don't want to force reps on cable lateral raises unless you're just, cheating the rep to get the negative or something. But that's not what I'm telling you to do here. And the barbell shrugs will actually happen in the same rep range because the traps will respond very well to that. And you're going to do 4 sets. This one is fixated. Why? Because your ability to progress on that is not critical. So I would much rather that you get fixated volume on that, and I'm fine with sacrificing progression because the specificity of the movements that you're doing here is 0. They're not going to feed your strength work, so you're fine with not progressing on them. It's just volume. And then you do diamond push-ups, knee raises, and calf raises. All of these are as many reps as possible. All of these, okay? So I'm writing AMRAP. And these are also an AMRAP for the set. So I'm writing set AMRAP. And what is the logic behind that? Well, the logic is that deep in the program, in the training for that day, you're cooked, you're baked. Your ability to go back to baseline is 0, meaning that you think, it's why AMRAP sets, I'm going to do as many AMRAPs as I can because it's so easy. You won't. You'll do 2 and then you won't be able to do 10 push-ups anymore and you'll go home. This is going to be based on your ability to assess when you should go home because your absolute baseline is never going to be 0. You will never get to a point where you can do 0 push-ups, okay? So at some point when you feel it's not productive anymore, you bounce. What I just said should actually ring a bell. This is not a program that is for novices. Gentlemen splits in general are not for novices. So I don't encourage you do that. For frequency reasons and also for what I just said, because a lot of this is going to be manipulation and the manipulation happens within the workout. It's not pre-programmed. The mechanisms of the manipulation are pre-programmed. You're not just going to, what is the term for that? Improvise. That being said, you will have to take decisions within the workout based on your ability to recover and how you feel. And that's not something novices should have to think about. If you look at the logic of the day, you start with your strength work, then you do your easy bar curls, etc., etc. And basically, the lower you go, the less important the exercises are. That's principle of programming that is very important. And the reason why is, one, it's for baseline because you want to be the freshest for the exercises that are the most important for your hypertrophy goals, but it's also a mental thing. You will find out that the exercises at the end of the program tend to be the one you skip the most because you get tired and you just want to go home. So outside of what I just described, the ability to go back to baseline, you need to keep that into consideration. If there is an exercise that targets a muscle group that is a big weak point for you, it needs to be high up. I don't care if it's a small body part, it's high up. That way you cannot skip it. If you look at the Monday, who cares if you skip the push-ups? You've already gotten the work for that. And especially for that guy who has a strong chest, if he skips push-ups, knee raises, and calf raises, too bad, who cares, okay? That's the logic behind that. It's a logic that is applied throughout the program, so pay attention to this. And as far as the rep ranges go, the rep ranges I'm giving you here are not specific to the guy. They're going to be good across the board. So if you're the type of person that sees the blank template and thinks, oh man, I will never figure it out, just copy, because they're going to be in his program, okay? Tuesday, lower. Main lift, squat. Glutes, quads, hamstrings, lower back, calves, lats. You start with a squat. For the squat, I like to do something that tends to be 3 sets of 4 to 8 reps. That's pretty good. I'm not going to put any evolving rep range here because this is the only day where he squats heavy. I personally do 1 to 3 sets, 4 to 8 reps because I have massive quads. I don't need more quads. It's not a focus of mine. For him, it is because he wants big legs. So he's going to do that. Then he does a back off set or variation. Okay, they're not the same. I put back off set or variation for him because I want to give him the freedom of deciding what he wants to do. He can just do his normal squats, okay? Or he can do a post squat. He can do a front squat. He can do whatever as long as it's a knee flexion. SSB squats, I don't care, okay? But it needs to be a pure knee flexion with a bar on your back. So a good morning is not going to work here, okay? I say okay a lot in this video. Same logic. This is going to be 3 sets of 4 to 8 reps. So that's a lot of work for the quads, for the glutes. It's already a ton. Yeah, which, you know, even though technically he needs a lot of work here, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. But just so you know, a person who asked the program, whose name I forgot, if you need to reduce because this ends up being too much volume in high intensity windows, you can either take a step back on your back off with the intensity, but I don't recommend that. What I would say is do your strength work with the squats with 1 to 3 sets, do the evolving rep range. But there's a chance you can handle that, no problem, so all good. And then we do a hip hinge accessory variation, whatever you want to call it. And for him, I actually picked the stiff-legged deadlift. Why? He wants more mid-back. The stiff leg is going to put your back at a parallel with the floor, and the weighted stretch is going to mostly target the mid-back and not the traps. That's a good way to get some easy gains there. It's not going to be anything major, but it's still something. And for the stiff leg, I love 6 to 10 reps on the stiff legs for 4 sets. And that is going to be immediately supersetted with pull-ups that are going to be weighted, okay? If you can do them weighted, again, unweighted, as many reps as possible. If you do them weighted, you are going to do 4 to 6 reps. And you might think to yourself, okay, so there's 4 sets, because yes, there is 4 sets, 4 to 6 reps. That's a strange evolving rep range for 4 sets. How is that possible? How am I going to get 6 reps and then repeat the effort potentially 3 times? You're sandbagging. That's what I'm making you do. You're sandbagging. Why? Because you already did vertical pulls the day before, and I'm not pushing progression on these. Meaning that I'm going to keep you in a comfortable rep range where you can always get 5 or 4 with a perfectly strict form. That's the explanation for that. And then you do leg raises as many reps as possible. And they're not weighted, of course. I think a lot of people would benefit from not doing them weighted because they're already hard enough unweighted. Then, back hyperextensions. Back hyperextensions, I always say 4 sets, 8 to 12. You really don't want to do back hyperextensions for high intensity. Your high intensity hip hinges for the hamstrings are done with the deadlift and the squats. So there's no point in weighting that. The only exception for that is going to be people who use it as a strict accessory for the deadlift to grow their deadlift. And in that case, yes, you can do 3 reps. But for people who train for hypertrophy, there's no point. Then you do your pull-ups weighted, 4 to 6 reps again. And then your leg raises as AMRAP. Now, if I just tell you this, do you think this is realistic? The answer is no. Why? You're going to be cooked by the time you're done with the stiff leg deadlift. So doing back hyperextensions would be stupid. It would be a waste of time. Your hamstrings and your lower back are already worked. This is what I call a rotating set. Meaning that it's a set that is going to replace the stiff legs if you don't want to do stiff legs on that day. That's something that I apply to my program. I have days that if you look at them, they make no sense because they are undoable. They are just way too hard. They cannot be done. But it's because the sets rotate. Okay? On a un mot en français, on dit coulisser. We don't have that in English. I love that word, coulisser. I will invent a word. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to rotate. So if 1 week you want to do one, you do it, or the other one. What you need to do when you do sets like this is the values need to be the same. It needs to strain the same body parts. Or if it doesn't, it needs to happen somewhere else in the program. But now you're having rotating sets that have communications within each other outside of the days. This is getting complicated. I do that. It's advanced programming. Be careful with that because it's easy to lose track. So for the back upper extensions, you're not going to get as much upper back stimulus, okay? But for the posterior chain, you're going to get what you need. And the logic in that is, if you feel too tired after the back off set, you can always do your back hyperextension and still get some hip hinge in there, okay? While still getting the pull-ups, because you shouldn't be too tired for the pull-ups. And then you do your calf raises weighted this time, neck work and leg raises. So as far as the calf raises weighted, I say 10 to 15 reps. Same, you don't want to go low rep ranges on the calves. 8 to 12 also work, but I'm going to do 10 to 15 here. You don't want to do low rep ranges for the calves. They're a small muscle group. And also the tendons surrounding the calves are quite fragile. You don't want to tear an Achilles tendon. Neck work is going to be in the same rep range, 10 to 15. That's even a little bit low for neck. And leg raises AMRAP. And this is going to be for 4 sets. If you follow the logic I explained before, this is the set that goes. This is the set that is not important. The issue is that because I'm programming the calf raise always at the end of the training, if you always skip that portion, you're going to end up with chicken legs. This is where you build mental strength and mental fortitude. When you're pooped and you only have those few exercises left and you just want to go home, I'm programming the exercises so that they are the least tiring. They target the smallest muscles. There are easy movements to recover from intra-workout and outside of the workout. So you have no excuse. You have to do them. Thursday, the second upper day, is the bench day. Chest, triceps, shoulders, lats, and rear delts. I would usually not have someone bench only once a week because that's, if you don't regress, you're already lucky. Most of the time you will regress from that. But for progression, forget about it. The horizontal press once a week, you will not progress on that. You need frequency for the bench. But he doesn't care because he trains for hypertrophy. He wants a bigger chest. He has a big chest. Sorry, he doesn't want one. He has a big chest. And the chest is stealing the work from the shoulders. So he benches once a week. And for your bench, we're not going to do anything crazy. I do want you to experience some high intensity because you're getting some volume with the push-ups. So what you're going to be doing is, I'm going to have you in a 4 to 6 reps for 3 sets. And then dumbbell overhead press, again, that focus on the shoulder, and superset with a French press. Same logic of the superset, you can utilize one of the dumbbell for the dumbbell overhead press. For the French presses, the range of motion can be quite extreme and you can really play with that. You really don't need a ton of weight for that exercise. So for the dumbbell overhead press, 8 to 12, we're going to completely hammer the shoulders. And this is going to be for 4 sets as well. And the French press is, I like 6 to 10 for the French press. But you can do 8 to 12 as well, it's no issue. You can even then 10 to 15 for French press. Everything works, just don't go below 5 reps, there's no point. Just getting the weight into position is going to be a hustle. Then do chin-ups, weighted. The rep range for the weighted vertical pose are always the same, 4 to 6 reps. And if you see the logic in this, you got 48 hours to recover from a different type of pull-up, meaning that yes, it still works the same muscle, but you will be fresher than if you did chin-ups twice. So you do your chin-ups, then knee raises as many reps as possible, and then wrist curls. Why do I include wrist curls? In the grand list of movement patterns, wrist flexions, calf raises, neck work, all of these are bottom. Why? Not necessarily that they're not important for aesthetics, they are key for aesthetics and for muscle development, but in terms of pure muscle gains, I always prioritize the movements that are going to work the most muscles. And that's what most people need to do. Does it mean you need to completely ignore isolation movements? No, or you're going to end up looking terrible. So he wants bigger forearms, I'm putting wrist curls. Wrist curls, 8 to 12 reps. You can even do 10 to 15. That's perfectly fine. But that's a good rep range for the wrist curls. And for the wrist curls, pick a style you like. Try all of the styles. If your wrists hurt, stop. It's a bad movement for you. Try them standing up. Try finger curls. I will make a tutorial about finger curls. Try things that you feel in the forearm. If you feel that it's the wrist doing the work, it's a wrong movement for you. Then he does hammer curls. Hammer curls, for him, after the wrist curls, he's going to be tired already. I don't want mechanical failure to limit him, so 6 to 10 reps. You can replace hammer curls by pinwheel curls if your shoulders don't like this position. Mine hate it. And we're going to do actually only 3 sets with this one. Rear delt flies after that, 8 to 12. Keep in mind that for the rear delt, you can do them fully laid on the bench, if the bench is high enough. You can do them on an incline, you can do them just bending your torso. Find what hits the rear delts the most. Because it's called a rear delt fly, not a traps delt flies. If you feel it in your traps, do Arnold raises. I detail them in my Road to Bigger Shoulders playlist. And then triceps extension. Triceps extension are going to be in front of body without shoulder flexion. So 10 to 15 here. 10 to 15 because I'm not having him isolate the lateral and medial heads of the triceps too much, so I want him to do that like this. And then last set, neck work, crunches, calf raises, same logic, AMRAP. The only difference is the calf raises are weighted here. Same logic as with the pull-up with the frequency and the communication between the days. Calf raises weighted 6 to 10. In this case, 6 to 10, we're just going to modify the rep range a bit for a higher intensity. If you do your calf raises on the other day, 8 to 12, 6 to 10. If not, you can do them 8 to 12. Just make sure that one day is higher volume than the other, just for the heck of it, so that you can experience progression at a faster rate on one day. And for the styles of calf raises, again, pick the style you want and get good at it. When it comes to set rotation here, it is doable, but I don't recommend it. Why? You always want your upper body days to look longer. They need to be longer visually in terms of listing. Why? Because your ability to accumulate tonnage with lower body is much greater. So your lower body days should look like this and your upper body should look like this. The thing is, you should feel much more tired after a lower body. I can tell you that after that Tuesday, you're going to be pooped. Because a lot of the movements you're going to do on an upper body are smaller body parts, so they're not as tiring, so it needs to be longer. So even though this looks like a lot, it needs to be done for progression. The sets that are going to be skippable are the ones that are at the bottom of the list, But if you can't do your bench for strength work, then the dumbbell overhead press and French press, then the chin-ups and knee raises and wrist curls, the day is a little bit for nothing. That is going to be enough to hit baseline and trigger hypertrophy, but the armor curls afterwards are also very important. So a lot of the time for people who are doing upper body work, what is going to limit you is this. It's your mental stamina. It's not your physical stamina. Especially with a program like this, because I make sure that the muscles never go to baseline. Or if they do, it's at the end of the program. You shouldn't be incapable of doing the movement. It's the opposite for lower body day. For lower body day, most of the time it's physical stamina that is going to run out way before mental stamina. Friday, second lower day, deadlifts. The guy told me, I want a bigger back, you gotta do your deadlifts. I don't care what people have to say about it. People who say, oh, it's bad for hypertrophy. Look at my back. If you think I have a small back, then okay, maybe it's bad for hypertrophy. But if you think my back is half decent, 85% of my back is deadlifts. That's all I've done. Deadlift, deadlift, deadlift. For the meat and the thickness of the back, that's all I've done. For the little details of the rear delts and the lats, I've done other things that I program as well, but the deadlifts, you cannot skip them. It's too important. And for deadlifts, you do 2 to 5 reps, 1 to 3 sets. And that's the good stuff. And deadlifts is really one of the lifts where you can get away with low frequency and low rep selection. The intensity just has to be high, but of course the form needs to be on point. So that's the reason why I'm making you do this. If you feel like your form is not good, stick to 5 reps or 4 reps and repeat the effort for 2 sets or 3 sets. And when you feel confident, add weight. Don't add weight when you hit the weight, okay? Back of set or variation, okay? Usually for deadlifts, I recommend most people do a variation. Just don't do just straight up deadlifts. Most people will not be able to recover from that. I can, but I'm a little bit special in that aspect. I will detail the programmation of back of set in the hypertrophy series eventually, so maybe next week. Stay tuned for that on Friday. Then, and for the back of sets, I like to do 3 sets. 3 sets, and if it's a back of set, you're going to do 2 to 5 reps again. So if you stick to your normal deadlift style, which I don't recommend, if you do a variation like the RDL, you can do 8 to 12 reps. And you're going to superset that with absolutely nothing, okay? Because I want you fresh. Which is also not something I tend to do, you know, for my personal use. I tend to superset my back of sets. But here, for someone who's not super used to deadlifts, it's not a good choice. After that, you're going to do post squats. So he's going to do post squats. Superset with pull-ups. The post squats are going to be 3 sets of 4 to 8. So I'm keeping him in that rep range. And this here is going to be the end of the workout. Because it's the same logic as for the Tuesday. You're going to do deadlifts. They're not going to completely bury you, but then you're going to do a back of set or variation, so your posterior chain is cooked. The post squats are going to completely finish the posterior chain and the hamstrings. And after that, you go home. Or you continue. And if you continue, what's going to happen next is going to be rack pulls. You're going to do rack pulls 8 to 12. And the logic behind the 8 to 12 is that you're going to do them touch and go. Okay, so you're going to have the emphasis on the upper back. The reason why I get you on a higher rep range is that 8 to 12, you're going to find that if you go too low in reps, the first rep is going to end up being the toughest rep of the set, and you don't really want that. So you're going to do your rack pull, superset it with pull-ups. The pull-ups on that day are not weighted. Okay, so as many reps as possible. Superset with leg raises. And here I'm implementing a forced rotation. And the forced rotation is not the same as Tuesday, because on Tuesday the back hyperextension was a replacement. Here it's an A or B, okay? So it's not A, and if A doesn't happen, it's B. It's you pick A or B. It's not a choice by default. So you do your rack pulls, or you do what I call Kneepart Shrugs, which is the snatch grip shrug that I call like this because it's funny. Kneepart Shrugs, 10 to 15 reps. Okay, always don't go lower than that. And if you're not used to a snatch grip, do not immediately jump into high rates. Either you start with a normal grip and you slowly increase the width, okay, as you stay with the same weight, or you start with baby weight and you get used to a snatch grip. But for people who want a thicker middle back, do Kneepart Shrugs with the form I described. You will feel a stretch you've never felt before. Then you do pull-ups, not weighted, and leg raises. So here, this is the most technical day. Why? Because the back of set or variation only happen if there were no rack pulls. Why? I don't want you doing deadlifts, then back of sets of deadlifts, then a rack pull. That's way too many pulls. You don't want to do so many pulls. So the rack pulls and the existence of them only happens if there is no back of set. And the A or B, which is the Kneepart Shrugs, they can exist even if the back of sets were done, which gives you the opportunity for a full day that is going to be constituted of either deadlift, back of sets, post squats, and rack pulls. Deadlift, back of set, post squats, and Kneepart Shrugs, or deadlift, back of sets, deadlift, post squat, rack pulls. The logic is I'm keeping the same amount of tension on the lumbar spine from one version to the other, but there is one that is going to be heavier. So on days where you don't feel too hot, you're going to go with the Kneepart Shrugs variation. You're going to skip the rack pulls. And as far as the deadlifts, I am giving you 1 to 3 sets so that you can control the volume that you're going to be doing for the other variations that follow. Because for the rack pulls, yes, and that's what I forgot to say. For the rack pulls, you're going to do 3 to 4 sets. So that gives you some leeway as well. And for the post squats, it stays at 3 sets, and the back of set or variation are also 1 to 3 sets. And if you do the 1 to 12 with variation, it's 3 to 4 sets. So this is why I said this is technical. This is one of those days that is going to ask you to stay on your toes, because it's going to take a lot of manipulation within the day based on what you need. Okay, but if you can master it, I can guarantee you this is a really good day for the lower body. And then arm day. So the arm day is going to be shoulders, biceps, long out of the triceps, calves, lats, and rear delts.